Highway 99 is a major north-south route through Oregon, paralleling and at times part of Interstate 5. Connecting major urban centers with rural communities, the daily commuters and commodity movers traveling this route through Oregon's Willamette Valley usually focus on the road ahead, rarely noticing anything other than traffic. Robert Kenta, a cultural resources director with the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, is an exception. Traveling on 99, just north of Corvallis, he knew of a small patch of woody-stemmed plants growing along the highway shoulder. Much like an individual who knows foxglove as digitalis, a source of medicine for fighting cardiac disease, or realizes camas is actually a vitally important first food, Robert knew these plants to be useful. He was keenly aware of their traditional uses and cultural significance. He knew these plants needed to be preserved. This is the story of these plants, their role in history, their continuing importance today, and the cooperative spirit their rescue fostered between governments and government agencies.
I'm a Wasco native, I'm a Wascoweaver, and our culture was along the Columbia River for something like 12,000 years. In the late 1800s, we were forced off onto reservations, so we lost a lot of knowledge, especially about weaving and plant fibers. And slowly, we brought this knowledge back in the early 1990s. And I want to help revive the knowledge of the natural plant fibers, because there are a lot of people who are growing up and they want to preserve this knowledge of natural plant fibers.
Well, the project was based on my concern of Dogbane plants, Apocynum Cannabinum, that was growing in the ODOT right-of-way, and it was one of the most robust patches that I've seen. And most patches have been really decimated. There's been really active eradication efforts over the years. It's considered a noxious weed by most people, but it has really important cultural uses for making string and rope and all of the things that are made with string and rope traditionally, including a lot of basketry, soft bags, and especially a lot of the soft, closely woven bags that stored food materials. My understanding is that bugs don't get into the foods that are stored in them because they're repelled by the toxin in the fiber.
That's the hemp dogbane. This fiber has length to it. And just as some people carded wool and made wool thread and then wove wool into things, you can use these fibers the same way. But you need to find an expert to tell you exactly how to make it into a good twine. The people here many years ago found that it did indeed have potential. And so they had a way, since there were no dollar stores, etc., they had a way to tie things together and hold them in a group. To create mats, they tied their tule reeds that they had carefully dried just so and made the roofs of their houses. But it's an amazing fiber.
The importance of dogbane in the daily lives of the tribes of the Columbia Plateau in Washington, Idaho, and Oregon cannot be underestimated. It was used in making fishing nets, snares, string, rope, and in creating and weaving basketry. The fiber was so strong it could even net and hold the giant Columbia River sturgeon. Today, the twined handbag is carried with pride as part of ceremonial regalia or is often displayed as fine art and is valued greatly by those who own one. However, the process of obtaining and creating this miracle fiber for so many uses was not and is not an easy one, Pat Courtney Gold explains the process.
I would bring back fibers to show the elders, and after almost a year of going out and looking for fibers that I thought were dogbane, finally my sister and I found a short piece of dogbane, and they said, yes, that's it. They were very pleased that we finally found the natural fiber. But then we had to learn from scratch the correct time to harvest and how to process the plant before we could work with the plant. And that was a lot of work because of the elders we talked to hadn't been weaving. They lost a lot of this knowledge when their ancestors and even themselves were moved to reservations. So what we did was we went to other elders on different reservations and talked to them, and some of the elders on reservations didn't move too far from their traditional sites, so they still had this knowledge of harvesting and processing dogbane. So they told us a lot about how to do this. After I did all of my jaunting around the state of Oregon looking for dogbane, the quality of the dogbane was very hard to find because most of the plants were very small, and the elders told me that it's easier to work with tall dogbane. So eventually, when I talked to one of the younger weavers, she had some seeds from a dogbane plant, and she said, why don't you try growing your own dogbane? That way you don't have to travel all over. So I took those seeds and came back home and planted them. Now it saves me from making these long trips just looking for dogbane fiber. Another problem with looking for plant fibers to work with is a lot of the different government agencies spray along the roads especially. And I had to be very careful and very cautious because a lot of the pesticides and herbicides that are sprayed are systemic, and I'm very careful. A lot of weavers are very careful to make sure that when we harvest plants, they're pure, they're clean. This plant is now flowering. And in general, when we harvest our plant fibers, we never harvest when the plant is getting ready to reproduce itself. So we would never harvest a plant like this. So the time we harvest dogbane is when the leaves turn orange, yellowish orange. And the nice thing about the dogbane turning that color is the slightest breeze and the leaves just vibrate, just the slightest breeze. And a lot of us weavers always laugh and say, oh, the dogbane, it's beckoning to us, they're ready, they want to join you in your baskets. So we harvest in the fall, late September, early October, when the leaves, when the whole plant starts to dry. This is the bark. The top part is the bark of the dogbane. And then as I process it, the first step is to take the inside out of the bark, out of the stem. So that's what I've done here. And you can see that the little outside bark is still on, and it holds all the fiber together. So we process that and get this bark off, the outer bark, and then we get this fine hair. And that's our goal, is to get this hair. That's what we work with.
Indian hemp, or dogbane, is prized by those who are aware of its cultural significance and many uses. Along with uses in basketry and weaving, it has also been used in traditional medicines, and its biochemical makeup acts as a vasoconstrictor. It can also be invasive to orchards or cultivated areas, and has been presented as possibly toxic to domestic livestock. Because of this, it is listed on the noxious weed list and is frequently targeted in weed or spray control programs.
The dogbane, one of the most amazing fiber plants on this continent, maybe the most amazing fiber plant in my opinion, is on the noxious plant list because it spreads easily and sends out runners and comes up. And here it is being called noxious because it's successful. It's a successful native plant. Some people are aware that if your livestock are pinned into an area with nothing else to eat and had to browse on this particular species, dogbane is toxic. And I have dogbane in with my cattle and horses. They never touch it. The deer don't eat it. Nothing eats it that isn't trapped with not enough to eat.
Preparation of dogbane for its many uses is traditional knowledge. It is handed down as living culture, but if the plant is not available for harvest or access is denied, cultural traditions may be lost.
The significance behind all these plants and keeping the traditions alive is the fact that a lot of the elements of the old tribal cultures are lost. You had several waves of epidemic diseases coming through these populations. Then after that, you had treaty signing and removal to reservations, and sometimes homogenization of the cultures, assimilation into European cultures. And through those policies and practices, just huge parts of the old tribal cultures got completely lost forever. So it's really, really important for the tribal government to try to keep alive as much of what's left of the culture as possible. Now, what's left is the practices of harvesting traditional foods, the practices of harvesting traditional basketry materials and other types of materials, and then the craft that's been handed down over thousands of years and hundreds of generations of being able to make very beautiful and functional items out of these traditional materials. And if those are allowed to die as well, then that's pretty much all the tribes have left, and that is really going to destroy these very ancient cultures, which are, I think, in my opinion, the tribal cultures are kind of everyone's legacy. There's something all Oregonians can be proud of, something all Americans can be proud of, is the fact that these ancient cultures are still alive and largely unchanged. Yes, they've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and still somehow there's these big pieces of culture in the basketry, in the making of tools, in the preparation of traditional foods that are still alive. And that's a really cool thing, and I think we ought to try and bring back more of those things.
Oregon has 9 federally recognized tribes. Each tribe functions as its own sovereign nation, with specific rights and privileges to hunt and gather on traditional or ceded lands granted through various treaties and agreements with the U.S. government. The state of Oregon respects these rights and works with the various tribal government representatives to protect and manage resources for all residents of the state.
Tribal Government Day, as you know, is an opportunity for all Oregonians to learn about the rich culture and heritage of Oregon's tribes and to celebrate and honor the sovereignty of the Native Americans here in the state of Oregon.
Within Oregon state government, the Oregon Department of Transportation is a leader in working with tribes while following its mission to provide safe and efficient transportation systems supporting economic opportunity and livable communities. Knowing the importance of safety, as well as hemp dogbane's cultural status to a variety of communities, members of the ODOT Geoenvironmental team realized it would be beneficial to both motorists and gatherers to relocate the dogbane away from Highway 99. Their goal was to ensure the plant's survival and develop a safe access for current and future generations. Finding the right place involved employees of the Siletz tribal government, the Oregon Department of Transportation, and Oregon Fish and Wildlife, all working together to coordinate the transplant effort. This meant finding land with similar soil and water characteristics, as well as an area where the plants could grow and be harvested safely while not displacing other native species or accidentally being mowed or sprayed. The place of choice was finally found, Access issues were negotiated and transplanting was started with hand tools and several dedicated staff members from ODOT and the Siletz tribe. Placed among the historic foundations of a former military training ground, the land met all the requirements for growth, plant protection, access, and safety. Now the plants are thriving in their new location, providing a source for an increasingly sustainable, safe harvest of this vitally important cultural resource.
The Federal Highway Administration takes our environmental stewardship very, very seriously. It is very much a responsibility of all of us involved in transportation to be good stewards of the environment. And to have an opportunity such as this Dogbane project to demonstrate that commitment, and to have a partner like the Oregon Department of Transportation who is willing to recognize a need, act upon that need very quickly and in a very positive way is tremendous. I know the Oregon Department of Transportation very much prides themselves on doing the right thing. The Dogbane project is very much a model for across the nation. It's a model on many fronts, but most importantly, it's a model of collaboration, and how when people get together and are able to build upon their relationships that they have to advance a project that's important, that is very much needed. And a project like this cannot happen without that type of partnership, those types of relationships, and a collaborative spirit that exists here in Oregon, and that can exist anywhere across the nation.
Through the efforts of a few individuals from different governments and local agencies cooperating to save a simple plant, one without environmental protections, they have ensured this plant will be available for teaching, general use, and carrying forward the traditions of the past.